everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Dario from LORIOT, and this is Future Frame, where we explore what's next in tech, culture, and innovation through fresh voices and eventually unexpected perspectives. And today we are talking about IoT, and we all know that the Internet of Things is at a turning point as deployments now are scaling and technologies converge. And the question is no longer what IoT could do, but what it's actually becoming. And in this episode of Future Frame, we are exploring this topic through three lenses, the three T's: trends, themes, and tech, to understand better what's happening in the market and how organizations are adapting to these changes. And to help us unpack these shifts, I'm joined by our guest from Analysys Mason, who track these changes every day across industries and markets. So let's start. Here we are. Welcome to Future Frame, Ibraheem. And before starting our conversation, as usually, I do ask you if you could briefly introduce yourself and your role at Analysys Mason.
Yeah, hi Dario, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to discussing with you today. So I'm Ibraheem Kasujee. I'm a senior analyst at Analysys Mason. So Analysys Mason is a telecoms-focused research and consulting firm. I've been at Analysys Mason just over 7 years now. I've been looking at the IoT market for most of that time. So my job is basically to try and make sense of what's going on in the world of IoT, try to separate what's real versus what's hype. So I spend my time talking to companies across the IoT value chain, from the end users to the connectivity providers, hardware application providers, try to get a perspective of what's going on in the market and produce forecasts and reports on what are the key technologies, what are the key trends, what are the things that people need to be aware of in what's going on in IoT.
Well, we are eager to listen to your insights then. So just to start, what's the current state of IoT and what IoT growth perspective today? And if you could dive a little bit more into if there is a new phase the market is entering and what are the forecasts?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways of looking at it, right? There's an optimistic view and a pessimistic view. I think the pessimistic view would be, if you think about where IoT was, 10, 15 years ago, what were the expectations of where it would be today? There was a huge amount of hype around IoT. There were some very eager forecasts. There was a famous one from Cisco about 50 billion IoT devices by 2020, which obviously fell a long way short. So I think from that point of view, if you compare it to the expectations back then, you could say, well, IoT hasn't come along as far as people were expected. But I think I take more of the optimistic view, which is actually, where are we actually today? If you remove those expectations, well, there are something like 20 million IoT connections across all technologies. Something like 4 billion of those are cellular IoT. The market is growing, consistently in the double digits year on year in terms of the number of connections. And I think IoT has come along a bit. There are still a number of challenges in the market. I'm sure we'll discuss some of those. But I think we're reaching a stage where IoT is a little bit more mature. It's still a new technology, and there's still a lot of growth and kind of hurdles to address. But I think it is reaching a more mature state now. Some of the companies have jumped into the market and jumped out. The ones that are left are much more serious about IoT. They understand the challenges and how to make it tailored to the enterprises. So I think we're reaching a more mature stage now where the growth is not as explosive, but the value is real. there are fewer pilots and proof of concepts, and there are more real deployments out in the field. And IoT is really, I think the optimistic view is that IoT is penetrated pretty much every vertical and sector out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of IoT use cases already in the field where IoT is really adding value. So from that point of view, I think IoT is in a good phase, and I think it's ready to really accelerate and mature further.
What you're noticing at LORIOT is that we passed through quite long years of the POC age. A lot of company where a lot of interest, but a lot of POCs, a lot of projects stuck in the POC phases as well. And now, well, since actually probably 1 year or a couple of years, I would say, we are observing, at least in our niche, LP1, LoRaWAN, IoT, we're observing this growing phase, this scaling phase, where now basically every 2 months we see like 20%, 30% more devices connected every month. So this is happening now from, let's say, our perspective. Of course, it's a limited perspective, not twice as the one you have. And my question for you is, this scalability also brings complexity, not just, let's say, from a provider point of view, but often also from the, let's say, adopters point of view, that are not sometimes ready to adapt to this new paradigm, where they have a lot of, they were used to the POC scale, let's say, and now they have to adapt. Is this adaptation happening? And or this is now a moment where this lack of adaptation could slow down the scaling phase we just entered, and what are the challenges today?
Yeah, I think it's a big hurdle. It's probably the biggest hurdle and barrier in IoT is that scalability. How do you go from, you have something successful on a small scale, how do you really translate it to much bigger scale? I think there's an inherent challenge in IoT in that how complex the entire value chain is, right? There's so many different moving parts and components. You have the hardware, you have the connectivity, you have the data management platform, the need to integrate with the existing enterprise systems and platforms. And kind of juggling all those different pieces is difficult. And what may initially work on a small scale, you'll encounter new challenges as that progresses and goes to a higher scale. I think particularly on the hardware side, so when we've done surveys of enterprises asking about their challenges in IoT, issues with hardware is often, the top cause or in the top 3 of the biggest hurdles they face to growing their IoT deployments. I think that's a big area where there are serious challenges. There are so many factors to consider in terms of, implementing your device, what kind of connectivity. There's so many choices to make about connectivity, about protocols. How do you factor in decisions about power usage? How are you delivering software upgrades? There's so many different things for a business to consider. Things that they may not initially consider at the pilot stage can become apparent as they scale. So it is a big challenge. But I think as enterprises are becoming more familiar with IoT, as solution providers are coming on board and working with them to give them more support on these things, I think that complexity in IoT, the number of things going on which are helping to break that down a little bit. So there's kind of steady progress there, which I think scalability is still a big challenge, but one which is gradually being addressed.
Is it also an opportunity?
I think so, yeah. I think an area of progress is around kind of the collaboration across the ecosystem. I think for a while, IoT was very fragmented and very kind of separated. Different pieces weren't really joined together. I think there's progress being made in those areas. Certainly when I speak to the connectivity providers in the last couple of years, they are placing much more emphasis on the hardware side, working more closely with the chipset providers and module makers. There's more collaboration across the ecosystem. So, I think often with IoT, something goes wrong with the device, the connection goes down. The enterprise doesn't necessarily know who do they turn to solve the issue, right? They go to the connectivity provider, they say it's not our fault, it's it's a hardware issue. The hardware guys say it's not us. You can kind of go around in circles trying to work out what's wrong. I think some of those things are getting a bit better understood. A bit more collaboration and understanding of the different pieces and how they fit together. So I think that they provide opportunities to kind of deploy to scale a bit more easier, having a bit more confidence that when issues come up, which they inevitably will with IoT, there's going to be a process in place to resolve them and help that deployment really scale.
Thank you. Let's focus a little bit now more on the technological part and trend part. And another trend that we are observing is that that IoT is increasingly merging with AI at the edge, or not necessarily, sometimes in the highest platform, data platform, and automation as well. So from your perspective, how this convergence is affecting the IoT industry in general?
Yeah, so I mean, on AI, I think firstly, it's not really new in IoT. It's been around for a while, but I think it's kind of come to the front because of the surge in interest around AI, Gen AI particularly. I think because of that, we're seeing a kind of renewed interest. But we've seen a number of use cases for a while where IoT is collecting the data and AI is the intelligence which is acting upon that data. The IoT, the AI is only going to be as useful as the data behind it. So you need the IoT to be the foundation to bring the data in, make sure it's reliable and secure. But I think where we will see more of a shift in a couple of areas. Firstly, in where the AI is being applied, there's been a bit of a shift, and this will come over time, towards more AI on the device itself. So seeing some of the different developments on the chipset side of AI being come in, the devices are becoming more sophisticated. There's more intelligence happening on the device itself. I think that's an interesting thing. Certainly, use cases like predictive maintenance, as I said, it's not a new use case for a while, but being able to not simply just collect data from the device, but being able to act upon it and then build those models to be proactive in predicting equipment failure. There are a number of video-based use cases which we hear about a lot, where you have a camera which is now a smart connected camera, things like quality inspection, defect monitoring. That's quite a common one which we hear a lot more about today. But I think where the AI goes is going to be interesting, and decision has to be made by the enterprises, the adopters of IoT, in terms of where is the intelligence going to be? Is it going to be on the edge? Is it going to be in the cloud? They have to factor in, how that affects their network architecture. There's going to be kind of security implications as well. If these devices are becoming more sophisticated, how do they ensure that those devices are secure? So I think a lot of things to think about. I think there are definitely opportunities on the device side. I guess the other area as well is around AI in the actual networks and platforms. So beyond the actual use cases, a lot of the providers that I'm talking to really thinking about how do we use AI on the platforms to make this platform much easier to use, get more insights out of it. I think going back to the point about IoT being complex, how can you take out some of that complexity in using AI? Can you quickly go into your connectivity, your device management platform, be able to identify network issues, identify anomalies, security, threat detection. I think these are all areas where AI has a role to play. So both on the actual use cases, but also in terms of the management and optimizing IoT in the back end as well.
I see your approach as an analyst is very neutral. I'm very excited about IoT. I always get very passionate about also this convergence with the AI, and I see a huge potential. And I think this can be also an accelerator, because AI is nowadays so mainstream that could work as kind of accelerator for IoT as well, because make it somehow easier, starting from interface, but also pattern recognition and analysis, or the use cases you mentioned on the device, on the end device. So I see a lot of potential there, and still a lot of untapped potential. So still, I'm very, very, very excited about this convergence. So I cannot not share it. Yeah. But talking about and you touched this topic already now, this integration, and another trend we are observing, you will confirm if it's a general trend or not, is that the interest on hybrid IoT models, for example, combining different connectivity technologies, cellular and LP1 or satellite and terrestrial connectivity, but also at the stage of the IoT value chain is actually happening as well. And I would like to hear your opinion about if this hybrid IoT is something positive for scalability or for adoption, or there are, let's say, risks that increase complexity, for example. So if there is a balance, where is at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely a trend that we're seeing as well. I think for a while, for a few years, there was this kind of narrative going on about, a battle between NB-IoT versus LoRaWAN versus Sigfox. Who's going to win? One is going to win, and the rest are going to die off. I think it's thankfully we've mostly kind of moved away from that. That narrative has kind of died down. Kind of acceptance that these technologies will coexist. And there's definitely been an increase in these kind of hybrid deployments, or the use of these multiple technologies in one. I think you guys yourself have this LoRaWAN plus IoT. I've seen a couple of examples of that being applied. Even kind of cellular and LoRaWAN coming together in a way which we didn't really see a few years ago. There are a number of cases where that's come up now. I think it's definitely a positive. Um, you know, for IoT users to have the option of, at the end of the day, they just want their devices to be connected and to be as accurate and resilient as possible. The actual technology being used, it doesn't fundamentally matter as long as the device, the connectivity is enabling a use case which is adding value, and that device is secure and resilient. So I think having a choice of the best available option, wherever that technology is, I think is a positive. In an ideal world, maybe there would be fewer technology choices where things would be much simpler. There'd be less complexity. But I think the fact is, the way the market has gone, we do have multiple technologies, and these are going to persist. So I think having the ability to have these hybrid type solutions where you're combining solutions, being able to switch between them. Satellite also is coming in. A lot of interest recently of that as coming in as a kind of option where your other networks may fall short, having that option as either as resilience or as a backup. I think that's also a positive as well of the enterprise has the choice and making sure their devices are always connected and that connectivity is resilient.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of connectivity. Sometimes it's also how to use different technologies and different characteristics of each technology's protocols at their best. Now, there are now, for example, we have a nice use case that combine Bluetooth and LoRaWAN, which is nice. So depending on the location of the device, the result is different and the precision is different. The amount of data we can transmit is different, and so on. So it's so as you said, it's a matter more about the use case and the needs and the requirements for the use case to actually provide value there. And so we've talked about these trends, hybrid approach on one side, then the technology is merging. So now the third element in this is technological, basically all of them, and growth, scalability. So how these trends are impacting everyday work. The team in the company, you have a lot of contact with also, let's say, and users and customers. So are they a team and the skill set or processes evolving with these new IoT trends, or they need to work on that?
I think there definitely is a process of change. I think with IoT, bringing IoT, in some ways, it's quite disruptive. It's quite a change. There's a change of culture that needs to come into the organization. IoT is quite widespread in what it's touching, right? So think about, you're bringing in an IoT solution. Your IT network will have to adapt, your security policies, your operations, the way of going about your business. You may be bringing in new business models, which may affect your finance. So IoT kind of touches various parts of an organization, and with that comes a shift. You need to have the right, skilled people to be able to implement and manage the IoT systems. So IoT often leads to quite a big change within the organization. I think fundamentally, the hope is that it's going to be positive change. It's going to lead to improved productivity, improved energy efficiency, and so on. But I think it's interesting that sometimes that can be a challenge in terms of there can sometimes be resistance within the organization of adapting to this change, the disruption that IoT might bring. And I think managing that from a provider point of view, from a solution provider, connectivity provider, I think it can be a challenge in finding a way to frame IoT and making sure that it's clear to the end users that this is going to be a positive to you. It's interesting. I was a couple of months ago, I was at an event and I was talking to a solution provider for HVAC, so ventilation, air conditioning system. So they have a connected maintenance solution. He's basically saying, the challenges he had in deploying the solution. Basically, that he's saying it's really that the technology doesn't work. The technology is clear. Usually it's quite clear improving the business case. But the challenge often facing getting this into scale is, usually this part of the organization is really positive about IoT, really enthusiastic about implementing it. And then there can be other stakeholders in the organization which are more resistant to it because, it's going to involve a change in how they go about their work. It may be a process that they've done for a long time, which is very, very manual and which is now being automated or digitized. So that can be a complete shift in how they're doing their work. So there can be kind of conflict sometimes within the team, but I think managing that is kind of key to making sure you frame IoT in a way that this is how IoT is really going to help your business. This is the way that it's a positive force rather than a threat or something which is going to be disruptive.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is something I think all the industry should work together to improve. Yeah, thank you. One more question about us, always from, let's say, the end user perspective, or in looking at the market and at its whole. There is one sector that your view is going to be more impacted by IoT in the next few years, where if we should, let's say, bet on a vertical or a sector, where we should point.
Yeah, I think this is a really tricky one to answer. I think just because of how widespread IoT is, right? I mean, there's so many verticals and sectors I could choose. If I had to pick out one, I'll pick out manufacturing. One, because this is one that I've done some recent research on. I think a couple of things really stood out for me on this. I think firstly, what was quite surprising to me was speaking to a lot of manufacturing firms. There was a lot of variance in how widespread IoT is deployed. So for every manufacturer I speak to, which already has autonomous factories with digital twins, computer vision, and super advanced use cases, there are many more manufacturers who they haven't even started with IoT. Right? They still have processes where they're collecting equipment readings on pen and paper. In 2026, they still have completely manual processes. So I think manufacturing is interesting because I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, where there are a lot of opportunities for really on the one end really simple, easy wins in terms of automating or digitizing processes which are currently inefficient. And then on the other end, I think going back to AI, and manufacturing is one where there are a lot of potential applications there. The ones I talked about around predictive maintenance of equipment, I think that's already quite established in manufacturing, but I think one we will see on a much bigger scale. And then things like computer vision, automated inspection of production lines. There are a number of these AI-driven use cases you can see coming into manufacturing. So I think that's the one where I think industrial IoT has been around for a long time, but I think the potential for it to reach a number of manufacturers who are still maybe unaware or haven't really seen the advantages of IoT yet. But then secondly, in terms of the growth in the number of applications and the complexity, I think there's a huge amount of potential there. I think it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, but I can really see a case where IoT becomes even more embedded than where it is today.
Also, it's a very fragmented market, no? Because there is no one. If you are talking about smart metering, is all very similar cases, and this is where a lot of scaling up is happening at the moment. But manufacturing is also a little bit challenging because the requirements, the different kind of sites and so on, it makes a little bit more fragmented and harder to approach. Beside, also the cultural or educational work that still need to be done in many cases. So this can lead to my final question, let's say, our future frame question. And it is, if you could frame just one idea about IoT, or whether a brand, teams, or tech, since our 3Ts today, what that could shape a better future, what it be?
Yeah, so I think my idea, or maybe it's a suggestion of something I would like to see across the industry as a whole, which is, I think it would be great to see more of a focus on the outcomes, the positive outcomes that have come from IoT. So more of a narrative around how, where IoT is being applied. Enterprises which had a specific problem, here's how IoT helped to solve that problem and what the result was. I think particularly in the telecoms world where I live, they can be guilty of really focusing on the newest technology, the newest platform feature. Here's what's new and the shiny new toy. I think there is room for that, but I think it would be great to see more of a focus on where IoT is adding value. So doing more work to highlight the success stories, the use cases, and where they're actually being applied. And I think that can come from across across the IoT value chain, right? So it can come from the connectivity providers, the network providers, solution providers, talking more about the success stories, and the enterprises, the end users being more willing to share those stories as well. I think highlighting those use cases and success stories of IoT can really help open up the market more broadly, help to reach a lot of people who may not even know what IoT is or how they may benefit from it. I think that will really help. Going back to a point about scaling IoT, I think the more we can highlight the actual success stories and positive cases of IoT, I think the more that will benefit the whole market.
And this can be a really joint effort from all the industry. Thank you to you, Ibraheem, and Analysys Mason for being with us today and for your insight. If our audience now that is watching the live, they could, if they want to ask quick questions, we still have a couple of minutes. So just type in the comment or in the chat, and we'll share the question with our guest. And by the way, as Analysys Mason is also media partner of IoT Sparks, and I've already personally invited Ibraheem to join us in Valencia this year, October 7th. It would be also a great opportunity to catch up with him and ask your questions face to face. So by the way, let me also share this link to IoT Sparks website where you can get more information and eventually also join us. I don't see questions, so once more, thank you, Ibrahim, and thank you to our audience as well for joining us today. And if you are watching this episode not live, the replay, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, to be part of the journey toward the future we're building together. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.